Hey, everybody. Welcome to our latest episode of The Catholic Syndrome. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest, our own producer for the podcast, Sam. Well, is it Solis or Solis? I've never gotten it right.
It's Solis. It's Solis. Yeah,
Solis. All right. That is going to be it for my terrible introduction. Sam, well, I'm going to let you take over. Tell everybody who you are, what you do.
uh, uh, Scott, you did fine. I mean, most people don't forget that it's Samuel, and so I really appreciate that you did. You got that. So what do I do? Well, my name's Samuel Solis, as you mentioned. I what is it that I do? So I'm like a media production per guy. I work at this company that it's about movies, right? And I don't necessarily make movies myself, although I do a lot of their production stuff for other writers. And I'm also very closely involved with the Diocese of Monterey and try to help them out and try to see what opportunities certain religious groups have, wherever I'm called. And lately, that stuff been shaping up into one thing. But here, now I'm helping write the Catholic Youth of Monterey, and um, making these little podcasts with you, Scott, and some in Spanish also. So if people have a chance to check those out, they definitely should.
Absolutely. Okay. So what I find interesting, though, is that you live in San Luis Obispo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're involved in all this media stuff and doing movies, and everybody usually thinks that happens down in LA, in Hollywood, which is true really for the most part. And I was just wondering, like, how do you do that? What, film groups are there? Like, what opportunities are there outside of Hollywood, like in SLO for you? Like, why aren't you in LA?
Oh, well, I mean, how I got too slow. Well, it's not really much of a long story. It kind of is. I mean, I was trying to go to LA to do film, but I was kind of immediately discouraged to pursue film initially. I was going to community college and I was ready to transfer to Northridge. And
Wait, you're going to go to Northridge?
yeah,
That's where I
yeah.
went.
You did.
I
Oh,
got my
that's
degree
right.
from Cal State Northridge.
Yeah, you were doing film also, right?
I started with film there. I did film all through high school.
Uh-huh.
I was pretty good at it for a high schooler, I'll say. Like, I got the President's Award at my school. That was really cool. I got to film a bunch of stuff. And so then I went to Cal State Northridge in the San Fernando Valley, shout out 818. But once I got there, I lasted for a semester, not because I hated film, but because I hated the culture of film, like how tough it is, and you have to like fight your way for stuff. And like, I'm just not that kind of guy. I remember I was talking to a professor, and he was just explaining how the program of the film department would go, like by the time you were a senior in college. And he was like, first of all, you need your portfolio, and you can get rejected to be in the upper division classes. And I was like, oh, well, that sucks. And he was like, and then also too, in your senior year, once you're finally there, there's going to be like a project where they'll only need one director, one editor, like one sound guy. And I was like, well, what happens if like I want to work with my buddy and like he also wants to be the director? He's like, well, you have to fight him for it and win it. And I'm like, that's not me. Like, I don't know if I can live like that way my whole life in this thing of film. So I decided to follow the money into youth ministry.
Yeah, yeah. That's precisely it, Scott. That was exactly my experience too.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's just, there's a lot of, cutthroat kind of environment, kind of culture that you kind of have to either you're in or you're out, right? And there's no like you can't go in between. It's all or nothing. And even if you do make it, nothing guarantees that you're gonna be making a good living out of it, right? Mm-hmm. And so it was kind of that I'm just like, screw this, I'm changing major. Yeah. So I ended up doing studying for to become a mechanical engineer, and I got accepted to Cal Poly for it. And so I came here to Cal Poly, but along the way, as I was, in my previous film classes from my community college, I had made friends with a lot of professors. And I really liked them. They really liked me. And one of them actually got accepted or, took a job here at Cal Poly to work as a film instructor. And I see her around, and I was like, "Hey, Randy!" And she's a professional editor also, so she works on projects, and then she's also an instructor. And so I met her, and I met her here. It's like, "Hey, Sam, what are you doing here?" "I'm doing engineering." It's like, "Oh, interesting. What happened to film?" And it's like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, it didn't work out." It's pretty much your story, Scott. And she said, "Well, I'm making this documentary right now, and it has to do with this company here in Slow that is, that works for screenwriters and things like that they're trying to go on their way in to Hollywood, or at least to film production." I was like, "Huh, that's interesting." And so, you know what? They're actually looking for a guy. Why don't you apply for it? I'll give a good word. And so, I applied, I got the job, and I was like, "Hey, this is good pay, and this is stuff I like. I'm going to leave engineering behind." And so I ended up doing it here. And, funny enough, Slow is trying to become a film kind of city, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they have the film festival, and I think Movie Maker magazine has called it one of the, top 50, I suppose, in the US. But I mean, yeah, so they're really trying hard to make it. There's this film community, and they usually bring good names, right? I think last year it was the people who got Green Book, that came over.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then there's other films too that a lot of people are involved. I don't know if this year, who's coming this year? Um, I forget her name. She comes out in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, um, the Quentin Tarantino movie. Anyways, but Josh Borland I've seen around, and sorry, I just saw someone in the office.
No worries.
And so the community's building, and quite honestly, if you want to make it to the mainstream film, definitely LA is the place. But there's so many other venues that you could try. I think Austin has become a really big city when it comes to filmmaking and
Oh,
television.
okay.
Yeah, and all places around, and mainly they're labeled with the indie name, but they're becoming more mainstream, right? With the rise of like Netflix productions and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
it's basically like if your movie's not shot in LA, it's indie. Kind of
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
feeling.
exactly. And right now, actually, with the COVID thing, I think the demand for movie making and or for content is pretty high. So they're trying to get as much content as, but there's these like race wars towards film, right? They're all racing to get the next big thing,
Mhm.
especially because everyone's at home watching. So there's definitely a boom in that.
Just throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks so you can get like
Yeah,
anything, their name on
exactly.
anything. Yeah. Okay. So then you're not from Slow, right?
Mm-mm.
And we know you're not from LA. So where are you from? Tell us about yourself. Where'd you grow up? What was your family like? All that stuff.
Well, I was born in León, Guanajuato, which is in Mexico. I was born there. I came here really young to a small town called Guadalupe. I think it's like 40 minutes south of here of Slow,
Okay.
and I mean, it's been mainly there in that small little town. I love that town, but I would go back and forth to León. I think it's part of my parents' way to not lose my roots, and so there was even a period where they sent me and my brother to Mexico to like, "You guys are going by your own over there and going to school because you guys are becoming too American." So they sent.
Really? So they just sent you to school in Mexico?
Yeah, exactly. And so, which was sad in the beginning, but ultimately it was kind of cool. Getting to meet all sorts of people. But yeah, uh, I was mainly in Guadalupe, and I also served at the parish there in Our Lady of Guadalupe, and also served in Santa Maria with Saint John Neilman.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, with their youth group there. Hmm.
Wow. Okay, that's fascinating. I didn't know that at all. I didn't know you were born in Mexico, actually.
Yep, yep, 100%, man.
Okay, that's really cool. That has to be interesting, just being thrown into another country. Like, yeah, you were born there, but like would you say your home is Guadalupe more or your home is Leon?
Um, I would say Guadalupe is probably more home. However, there is this dilemma where you just don't feel like you belong anywhere, right?
Hmm.
and there's like certain things you're, fighting with that you're like, no, I'm more Mexican, no, I'm more American or anything. Actually, funny story, the reason why I'm in Mexico, my parents, all of my brothers were born here in the US. I'm the youngest one, except for the oldest and me. And so we're seven siblings. The first one was born in Mexico, and then everyone was born here. And then my parents like, hey, let's just have another kid in Mexico. Just go to
You
Mexico,
got to
have me there,
bookend
and bring me.
it.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, we just thought it was a good idea. Which I actually, it feels special, right? A little
So
bit.
like almost all your brothers get to be like American, just for being born here. But then
Mhm.
like you don't, like you're a Mexican because you weren't born in America,
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah, 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 yeah. So yeah, it's a funny situation. I don't know. My parents are funny that way.
Yeah.
Have a good sense of humor.
I think that's really cool though that you were able to go back and forth between the states and Mexico to still see your roots. Like semi similarly, my whole family's from New York, and my parents and me and my sister were the only family here in California. So I only ever saw my family for a month in New York in the summer. Granted, it was like always the whole month of July. So like I
Yeah.
still like kind of got to know all my family and stuff. But
Right.
I always got to drive around and see like, oh, that's where my dad grew up. Oh, that's the house he would like mow their lawn for money. That's where my mom grew up. My grandparents still live there. Oh, here's the school they met at, and all these different things. Here's where your aunt used to live. And I always appreciated doing stuff like that, going back and seeing everything. But especially for you, like being born there and everybody is still there, I'm assuming.
Yeah, yeah. What's frustrating though is like, the longer I'm here, the more I forget Spanish, and the more I'm over there, I come back and I have to learn English. Or I mean, there's just this little weird buffer period. We're just
Yeah.
trying to adapt back. There's like a side of the brain when you're talking Spanish. I want to say there's like a different part of the brain that's using it and that it's active, and then one part rest. And then when you go back to English, it's like, oh, I have to wake that part up again because I don't, I'm trying to adjust with the
Mhm.
language again.
Oh,
Yeah.
here's a fun question. So I've heard
Sure.
about this phenomenon before with bilingual people. What
Mhm.
language do you think in, and what language do you dream in?
Oh, that's a good question. The part two is a pretty good question. What do I think in? I don't know, man. I really don't know.
I just don't do that much thinking. No.
No, no, no. Well, I mean, and what I suppose half of the time. I mean, if right now I'm talking and I stop, most likely it goes on into English, right?
Okay.
And maybe if I'm so deep in thought, then it starts mixing, and then
We get into
and
Spanglish territory.
yeah, 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 yeah. And if I'm talking in Spanish, most likely I'll probably think in Spanish after dreaming. Yeah, man, I don't know how much control I have over that, but I do think it. Most of the really special dreams that I could, there's dreams that I have that I just never remember, but the ones that I do remember, they're mainly Spanish.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Now that I've asked you, you're gonna start like remembering every dream you have every
Yeah,
night.
yeah,
You're gonna like on your notebook just be like two in English, two in Spanish.
yeah, 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 maybe.
All right, so let's dive a little deeper now into our subject, like media and film stuff with the church, like or really just and the church. So you work for this production company. You're not necessarily the one making movies, but you're very involved in the process of making it. Because I don't think a lot of people know that there's more than just the director and the actors and the cameramen. Like there's so much more. There's gaffers, best boys, sound editors, Foley artists. There's all these different things, and I just flexed all the terms from film I remember. um, and and so but I'm wondering what first got you into film and media? Because for me, I saw my uncle taking photos when he was visiting me one time, and I thought
Oh,
his camera was really cool. And then my dad was like, "Oh, we live in Orange County, like Hollywood's not that far from us." I was like, "Yeah, that sounds really awesome." And so it was just like this one really small thing. But I was wondering for you, what got you into that, especially when you were planning it for a while, went away, and then came back.
yeah. I mean, since I was a small little kid, I remember watching Jurassic Park. That was like the movie that really had me like on the TV. Just I don't know what I'm watching, but it all looks so great.
Yeah.
I definitely believe that the dinosaurs were there, and
Dude, it still looks great today. The
it's
fact that it's
so
all
does.
animatronics, not CGI.
Yes, yes, it's so great. And I'm just like, oh, there's a dinosaur right there. Oh, he's gonna get eaten. And so, and I think just the thrills also. And I think my parents, well, my parents would also just they love movies, so they'll put even if they're in Spanish, right? They or even well, you know what movie we watched a lot? It was the Ten Commandments, right? And it's so and I mean, up until this point, I didn't really think it was a profession. I don't actually know. I didn't actually know where movies came from, nor was I questioning it. It was presented to me like, oh, great, it's a movie.
Oh
But
yeah, you don't question it as a kid. You don't you're not like, oh well, Little Mermaid. Well, I've never seen a mermaid before. How'd they get those shots?
yeah,
Like you don't have that thought process as a kid.
yeah, yeah. I had no idea that it was made somewhere. Exactly. So it's just it wasn't until I don't know. I suppose it must have been like 10 years old, but it was something that I wanted to keep in me. Like I didn't really want to tell anyone that I wanted to be a movie maker, because I don't know. There's something silly about it. It's like, oh, this guy wants to be. Everyone talked about being an engineer, being a doctor, being all these things, and it's like I want to make movies. But you're kind of like I don't know. I felt like I would be I would feel shame or guilt for wanting to make movies. So I never really talked about it. But um, I think just being exposed to movies and just always watching them. And I remember even when my brother and I played, it was always role playing movies. Like you'll be
Yeah.
this character, I'll be this character. And also, funny story. I was talking about the Ten Commandments. My family would watch it in Spanish. And I remember when we'd go to Mexico, we never flew. We always drove. It was a 2-day drive all the way to Leon.
Oh,
But on
dude,
the way
from that
there,
far, that's wait, and
yeah,
then how far away is Leon from the California Mexico border?
well, we wouldn't cross the border through California. We'd cross the border from Texas. Not even El Paso. It was all the way to
Wait,
like.
so you would drive just through San Bernardino,
Mhm.
on like the 40 or the 15?
Um. Hmm.
But you
I
would just
don't
drive
know,
through
man.
Arizona and then like that tip of
Yes.
Texas and
Yeah.
New Mexico then
Yeah,
too.
it wasn't until I didn't know roads, so I don't really remember the roads that we take. But it
That's
wasn't until
insane.
high school that we would fly.
Okay,
It was
so then where is Leon? I'm gonna look this up. I'm going to Google
sure
Maps right
it's
now.
right. It's close to the center. The center of not the center of mass, but like geographical center. It's close to the geographical center of the country.
So like
Um,
Leon, Mexico.
mhm,
There we go. Leon, Guanajuato.
mhm. Guanajuato. That's not too bad. That's not
Oh
bad.
wow, yeah, that is central Mexico.
Yep. So we drive all the way to Texas and then go straight down to it. But what I was saying about the Ten Commandments is we'd watch it so much, or my brothers would watch it so much that I remember uh, everyone knew the lines to that whole movie. I don't know if you've ever seen the Ten Commandments. It's like a 3 hour long movie.
I've seen a lot of them. Like I promise, my mom is just as Catholic as your mom. I've probably seen it. I just might not
Yeah.
remember it. It's animated, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, it's a 3 hour long movie, and they knew all the lines to the whole movie.
Because
So
I can
they
still
like.
quote you the Prince of Egypt movie. I know that one.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's a great movie, man. Not as long, but still pretty good. But I remember as we were driving, they would say every single line of the movie. It was great. It was great. I was like, I don't have a movie, but because back then we didn't have smartphones and whatnot. But so everyone would just pretend to be a character and just do the whole damn movie.
Yep.
Um, so I think movies have been central to my family, but it wasn't until me who I took it serious. It's like, no, this is what I want to make, But that wasn't until like high school when I saw that there was a film class. It's
Hmm.
like, oh, there's other people that want to do movies. That's kind of where I took it more serious.
Yeah, that was me too. Once I found out my high school, like there was a film program, I was like, oh, I'm in. Like, let's do
Mhm.
this. Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so you got into film because of Christian media, and that's perfect because I want to talk about that specifically next. Like, do you think it's difficult to like find or even create Christian media today?
Hmm. I mean, today, um, I mean, I suppose you could make it. You probably get a lot of you probably get a lot of resistance from a lot of people, and I don't know how much. Like, if I wanted to do something very Christian up front, um, I don't know how much support I'd get from people to do it, or the funding, or at least where I am. Um, I would have to be close to people who are within church communities,
Hmm.
but I've tried that. I mean, I'm kind of doing that, right? But maybe not, fictional narratives, but it's even when you're in Christian communities, I don't know if a lot of the Christian communities know how much work and how much value a film would be made. Like, if you want to make it, it takes a lot of work, a lot of funding. And I just feel like a lot of Christian communities depend so much on donated work, that
Yeah.
it's hard for them to appreciate or to understand that, films require a lot of money or a lot of funding or a lot of work. And I don't know, similar to my issue when I was a kid, I thought that people wouldn't take movies or filmmaking serious. I think there's still some of that today, right? That I'm not
Hmm.
so sure how serious they take filmmaking, and how much good they could bring to people. So to answer your question, I do think it would be difficult. Um, and and even the Christian movies that I see out there, I just feel sometimes I feel frustrated that they're not really that good.
I didn't want to say it. You did.
I'm just thinking like, I don't know if these are at all, like, I wouldn't recommend them, but anyways.
Yeah, yeah. No, I feel similarly. There it's so hard, especially a medium I know better now would be music.
Mm,
Um and like Christian music. I remember when I took my kids at St. Carlos to Steubenville, Orange County 3 or so years ago. And one of the girls, I was like, "Yeah, what'd you all like most about it?" I was asking all the kids, and one of the girls was like, "I really enjoyed the music," and she's like, "I was surprised because I just thought like Christian music was just always bad." And I was like, "Well, I'm glad you now know like there's good Christian music out there."
yeah.
And I remember another time I was talking with an old fraternity brother of mine. He visited me here in Monterey, and we were having some beers. And we've always listened to the same music, like pop punk, metalcore, hardcore, stuff like that. And we were talking about one band just had an album out, and we knew that at least the lead singer and some of the other members were Christians, and sometimes that gets thrown into the lyrics, but they're not a Christian band. But
Mhm.
they'll throw it in a few songs here and there, and it's usually really tasteful, and I like it. But then that most recent album a few years back, like they went really hard on the Christian theme in a lot of the songs, which I was happy about. Cool, they're a really big band. But I just remember there's like one breakdown. This and the singer's just like, "Grace, grace, everything is grace, grace," and I'm like,
Oh gosh.
"Oh man, that's like you
Cringy.
can't have a breakdown about God's grace." Like, I don't know. There's just something a little cringe about that.
Yeah.
And he and I have the same view. Like he's a Christian too, not Catholic, but him and I are both like, it's too in your face, like
Right.
campy. And I think Christian movies and music tend to do that.
Yeah.
Do you have an example of a Christian movie that does a good job where it's not just so, I guess, bad?
That does a good job or that doesn't do a good job?
That does a good job. A good Christian movie people can be like proud to show their friends.
Oh, I see. I, I feel like a lot of Catholics would say Passion of the Christ, right? And I'm just like,
That
okay,
is a really good one.
it's a really good movie,
Yeah.
but I'm just like, to give you some other one. I really like, um, recently I've been trying to, going back to M. Night Shyamalan movies, although he's not necessarily a Christian guy. There's something really amazing about, there's something very Christian about his movies or his earlier ones.
Oh, there is. I was
Yeah,
unaware.
yeah. I mean, if you look at his first three serious ones, right? Or which was, or even the four. So it was The Sixth Sense. There's Unbreakable, and there's Signs, which has probably even more upfront Christian ideas. And so I think, although it's not, I mean, the Christian, the religious aspect of it, and how M. Night treats like what is faith, like how does, like, or the nature of man and how we try to seek meaning out of things, right? And he's a guy that he himself doesn't really say that he's a Christian, but he understands the importance of faith, and how he kind of Christianity makes sense to him. He went to a private Catholic school, and he said, when he was in
Oh,
school, yeah, he said it publicly. That's like, they told me stories of the Bible and all these things of tradition, and it made sense to him. It's like, this stuff makes sense to me. I don't understand why people don't understand it. And so, and you could tell that he treats faith to that degree, a man's search of meaning. I mean, have you seen Unbreakable, the one with Bruce Willis?
I have. And I
Okay,
have opinions very different than yours on the movie, I think.
I see. Well, I mean, I think those are, that movie, whether one likes it or not, I think it's a very interesting approach, of a man seeking, he doesn't think life is meaningful, and then all of a sudden
Because he
he
can't get
finds his
sick.
vocation of sorts, right? Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, he ends up being a superhero, right? But I mean, I just think that was an interesting Christian, like, Christian view, because I do think that that's very resemblance of what the spiritual side of people, and how we're not just these meaningless things.
Hmm.
These people, we need meaning, and we seek something that is transcendent. And
Yeah.
so maybe a little bit, I don't know if those were good examples, but I consider these movies good Christian examples. You mentioned the Prince of Egypt. I thought that was really great, although not. I mean, it's more than just Christian, right? It's covering a
It has
lot
a
of different
retelling of
faiths.
a story that's
Mhm.
already there. Yeah.
Yeah, or
But
actually,
still really good because there are plenty of other, movies made about the stories from the Bible that don't turn out as well as The Prince of Egypt. Let's be
right. This is
honest.
correct. This is correct. I remember watching. I feel like a lot of people will hate me for this, but I really don't like Pure Flix movies. I don't know if you know what Pure
Pure
Flix.
Flix, no, are they the production company?
It's a production company that does, like, God is not dead.
Oh, I hate that movie. Oh, that's
Yeah.
terrible. That
I
don't if
and
you're a Christian, if you're listening to this podcast and you are any flavor of Christian, do not watch that movie, especially not the sequel. They're terrible and they are not totally reflective of the faith. Oh,
Oh,
I
most definitely.
I love
I
the guy that gets shot. I forget if he dies or it's the guy that shoots him. Then it's like, oh, I need to be a Christian now.
oh yeah,
For
there's
no
just
other reason than like you shot a guy. Like
yeah. I mean, yeah. I just like, ew, like, why do people like
no,
these?
that movie made so much money though.
Yes,
Movie
it
made so
did.
much money.
But it's funny that, like, I mean, part of the purpose of making movies is to do an outreach, right? You're at least trying to tap into something that we all kind of share. And here are these movies that are just essentially calling out to the same people who already kind of, you know, like, it's not meant to really touch on anyone who's not Christian. On the
It's
contrary, it
literally
kind of,
preaching to the choir.
yeah, yeah, and it's very. I feel like they're very divisive. It's like, oh, there's that part where the guy dies. The antagonist of the first movie, right? Who's a
Yeah, that's like
professor.
is that like the oh, it's the professor, right?
Yeah, the
I
professor.
watched it once and I never watched it again, and it's
Yeah.
wow.
Oh my gosh, but I've never forgotten. Like, he dies and he, like, repents or something. But then they're immediately after they're in there's this Christian like concert, and they refer to that guy who just died, and it's like, I heard that one of your professors was bullying you or something like that, and then everyone starts booing the professor. This guy who just died. It's like, jeez,
I just
this is
remember the
so
very
bad.
end. There's a woman, I think, like she's now a widow, and
Mhm,
like she converted the doctor somehow. He was like bah humbug Christianity, and like he had like some miraculous thing, and
mhm.
she's sitting there reading the Bible, and like her husband's a room, and like the doctor, like a nurse comes in, it's like, what are you reading? It's like this great new book called the Bible. There's so many moments in that movie like that.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
just
so
just the
cringy.
touch on Unbreakable. If it's your favorite movie, I'm sorry. I I will just say I don't like it. I'm not going to get
Sure,
into why, but just
sure.
know that when I was taking my first film class,
Mhm,
sophomore year of high school, before my class made any movies, my
mhm.
teacher showed us. He went, "I'm going to show you first though an example of a bad movie so you know what to avoid." And he showed us Unbreakable.
Really?
And the whole class agreed it sucked.
Oh no, no, no,
That was
no.
what was used as an example of what not to make before we made our first film.
Interesting.
Yep.
Oh, that's
Yep.
bizarre to me.
And
All
listen,
right.
I will admit, I was 15 years old. I'm sure the context of it like that from my teacher, didn't help me like view it well.
Mhm,
But but like it's not just like, oh, this movie's bad, and all of a sudden I'm just gonna believe the whole thing's bad as well. So there was a little bit of, hey, this movie's bad going into it, but I
mhm.
also came to that conclusion on my own. But that's all
Interesting.
I'm gonna say because I haven't seen it
I
since I was
yeah,
15.
I advise you to just take a revisit if you get a chance. You might surprise yourself.
I'll just introduce you to my old teacher, and you guys can duke it out about whether
Oh,
it's good
most
or bad.
definitely. Bring him on, man.
Okay.
Oh, good though.
So I want to talk about. I really just have two more like real questions for you,
Sure.
and the first one is what can people do to get more involved in this? Like, people know how to get involved in media. Like, go to film school, go to LA, get lucky. Like that's not a secret. I
Mhm,
think the secret is you don't have to be the next Steven Spielberg or something. Like I was trying to be a director, and I realized really quickly that I'm not going to be Steven Spielberg,
mhm,
and my life is going to be really hard if I only want to be a director. But um, like we know how to get to Hollywood. It's not that hard.
mhm,
But like for the things you specifically want to do. So let's talk to our audience here. Like people listening, like they're Christians, they're Catholic, they want to incorporate that into what they do with media.
mhm.
How can you do that? Cuz you're doing it, maybe not directly with your company, but you're doing it now. So what can you say to help people who want to do that?
I see. Um, yeah. Well, in my company, what appealed to me with the company that I was with, they're trying to facilitate like screenwriting,
Mhm.
for people who are writers, and I, sp- I mean, there's an interesting thing about creatives. It's they want, I mean, more than just the one, the spectacle, or seeking to be an icon, or like you said, like a Steven Spielberg. Like, yeah, so that's kind of a wild goose chase. And what if you're not meant to do that, right? And I think mainly, at least for creatives, if I were to say, keep writing. If you're a writer, write.
Mhm.
If the Christian, if you're a Christian, if you're Catholic, and you have all these, a lot of this will come out naturally, in your writing. And that's in writing. That's kind of what it is. It's kind of like this exploration of trying to figure out what, trying to understand life, or dream up some scenario. And it, we were talking about M. Night Shyamalan, how he once said that, maybe I should pick another director, because I know a lot of people don't necessarily think he's the greatest. But and there's, or like Paul Schrader, he when he writes movies, he's the guy who did Taxi Driver or who
Oh,
wrote
okay.
Taxi Driver and things like that. He
Yeah,
writes.
I know zero names in Hollywood, so thank you.
Oh, it's all good. Yeah, no problem. My pleasure. When he writes, he claims that he writes for therapy. He doesn't really write it like I'm gonna make a great movie. He writes it's like there's things that trouble him. There's all these imagery that he sees, and then he puts it on paper, and somehow there's like this relationship he has with the story. It's not like it's him. It's a relationship he has with the story, and something in it it's a relationship he has with the art, right? And I think that's true for most creatives. It's like one, you have to not think about yourself. You really have to kind of surrender to for us surrender to this like beauty, I suppose. I don't know how else you know to explain it, and don't think about I'm going to give people a message. You kind of have to trust where it will take you, and whether you like it or not. Stories kind of, if you're a writer or you're any creative and you're doing these things, that thing that you write or you create, it says something about you. You kind of discover
Hmm.
something about who you are and how you view the world, rather than try hard to make a message, which I suspect that's what's going on with like Pure Flix movies, right? So it's all these people that's like, I'm going to give this message, I'm going to tell people this, and you get God's not dead kind of thing.
You just get beaten over the head with the message instead of the moments that show you it, kind of.
Yeah, and I think and if you make something really great, people see it, and who is the philosopher who so there's like Plato, who talks about beauty and and how this entity kind of it's the thing that inspires us to reach a higher um reaches a transcendence, and then there's something about beauty that's inviting, right? So let's say people talk about this is the truth, right? When people want to say, I want to proclaim the truth to people, and you're trying to give a message, and you make a speech. uh there's something about truth that's combative, right? A lot of people will hear something, I tell you, hey Scott, um here's Jesus Christ, this is something, you need to follow him because he's you're immediately going to put a wall, right? Because it's like, I'm not ready for this message, I don't know what you're trying to do. It's very hard for people to approach it, and let's say you trying to teach some moral good to people, you're trying to say, hey, you should be more charitable to people, you should do this, even that's also kind of divisive. It's like, well, I can't give everything to people because I don't, it's like they don't deserve it, right? Well,
Yeah.
I'm just kind of painting scenarios where, you could try to tell people truth, you could try to teach people how to be good, but it's hard to reach out. But when it comes to beauty, you're making something beautiful, and there's something appealing about it. You're not really sure what it is. It's something in awe, and it invites people, and it will reveal the truth. It will present a good, and so surrendering to it's such, I think. Look at the cathedrals we used to have, or we have in the Catholic Church. People go to them, and they go to these temples that are beautiful, like in that we have from old ages, that are still surviving, or even Christian paintings that we have in our history. You go there and you're just like, oh my God, I don't know what it is, but I'm so touched by it. And
Yeah.
it's something that invites people. And if we look at, let's say, I don't want to, there's some really pretty modern churches, but let's say there's like the box type of church. They're long,
Yeah.
there's nothing to them. Like, like me growing up, there's nothing appealing about the church. The temples, right? There's no art anywhere. There's just like these abstract things, which, done right, it could be beautiful, but there's nothing appealing to them. And you know, I feel like we haven't nurtured beauty anymore, or at least some beautiful things that, especially to the youth, is appeals to them or
Mhm.
calls them, right? And there's, most Christian churches, including Catholicism, have, we try too hard to preach to the youth rather than engaging them and presenting something beautiful to them that they don't have to be putting up a wall. They don't feel like they're being attacked, but it's something that, calls to them. And I think what people need to do is nurture that. At least in Christian communities, it's like we have all these tools. Why don't we try to make something beautiful? Or anything we do, there's why don't we try to lead a beautiful life? Or
Mhm.
everything we do, we make something beautiful so we can inspire people. Or yeah, yeah, I don't know if that was a good
Yeah,
explanation.
no, I like what you said a lot at the end, especially, beauty attracts people. I think we know that too by the fact that more people are go to mass more and go to more churches where it is like the old mass, not like just super contemporary thing. And listen, I'm gonna be honest, I love a good guitar and drums at mass. Love it. I love when I go to
Hmm.
like conferences in Steubenville and we're rocking out for Jesus. I love that. And there's a time and place for that, is what I think. And we're seeing a lot more people go back to the roots of the beauty and the solemnness and the respectfulness of the mass instead of like, how can we entertain people? And
Hmm.
I think that speaks for itself. And like you said, let the beauty speak for itself in that exact same way in any medium, whether it's artwork in the church, iconography, or even in music or film, if that's going to be the media as well. Let the beauty speak for itself. You don't need to beat me over the head with it like your name is God's not dead. like I'll get it if it's true and it's beautiful and it's really there. No,
Hmm.
you're right. And I think that totally answers the question. Okay, then before we go, was there any shout outs or something you want to mention, any project of yours or something for people to check out? I mean, you're with us every week anyway as our producer, but now we have you on to talk about specifically this. I wanted to give you that opportunity.
Yeah. So I'm working closely with the Newman Catholic Center in San Luis Obispo, and I'm trying to, I think now I'm becoming more and more involved, and it looks like it's going to become a thing for me. Like, I might have to, I might have to transition from my daily job into doing something this, because it
Mm.
definitely feels like it fills me with so much joy to and so much purpose to do this for the faith that I love. And I just so I'm working with Slow Newman, the Newman Catholic Center here in San Luis Obispo. Not just me, but I was able to get a group of people here to start working on the center. I'm also working closely, with the Catholic youth. Right now, me and a few other folk, we're just kind of providing the tools for, people can't do retreats, so they need kind of a place to do their regular retreats, and we provide the tools for Catholic youth. That this is also a part of that ministry. So you could check out their YouTube and their Instagram, and I mean check out more episodes on this
Yeah.
podcast. Which, yeah, Scott's been doing a really good job.
Oh,
And
thank you.
so there's that, and then the Office of Vocation. That's the other one that I've been um, starting to get more involved with. Recently, we had this. Well, they had this Lenten retreat for seminarians, and I was lucky enough to be hired by them, and I was able to, get quickly a small little crew to document their whole week long retreat. Now we did like a small little video every, like, at the end of every day, and then we built their Instagram account, and so the YouTube channel from scratch. And so that, I think on Instagram it's mry.vocations. On YouTube it's Vocations of Monterey. um yeah, so they're just starting, so I was able to we're trying to amp them up, and they're so we have all these three. I'm like, well, how can we make them better? So slowly I'll be getting more and more and more involved, so we could elevate the production, not necessarily to make things glamorous, but now to start getting into now that these three organizations are more now open to the medium. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, let's get into the real stuff
Yeah,
after
yeah.
this
We'll
eager
put
setting.
links in descriptions and text boxes, whatever they're all called on different platforms. We'll have links for all that for you. So remember, like, subscribe, follow, comment, do all the things. You can find us wherever you're listening to us now, and Spotify, YouTube, wherever you find podcasts. You can listen to us there. Share us with your friends and your family. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And thanks, Samuel, for showing your face and your voice here instead of just being a fly on the wall, making sure everything just runs well.
Yeah, this was exciting. I liked it. Thanks a lot, Scott.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great one.
Yeah, you too. Bye.